I learned something at my son's funeral. Grief doesn't make people kinder. Sometimes it just reveals who they always were. My daughter-in-law Sienna stood at the podium, dabbing her eyes with a tissue that never actually touched her face. The lilies made me nauseous. Same flowers from Claire's funeral 6 years ago. Sienna's heels clicked on the marble floor, sharp and impatient, like she had somewhere else to be. "Garrett was my everything," she said, voice breaking in all the right places. "He gave me the world." I sat in the front pew, gripping the wood until my knuckles went white. 2 months since we'd buried Garrett. 2 months of living in what she'd started calling her house. 2 months of biting my tongue while she made plans for my future without asking what I wanted. "We need to talk about your living situation, Walter." That's what she'd said yesterday, sitting at my kitchen table, the same table Claire and I had bought in 1987. "It's not healthy for you to be alone in this big house. I've been looking at assisted living facilities. I'm 72, not senile. I've been a CPA for 42 years. I know exactly what 'we need to talk' means when someone else does all the talking. But I didn't tell her that. Not yet. The house on Maple Street has been mine since 1985. Claire and I raised Garrett here. Every room holds memories. Her laugh in the kitchen, his graduation photos on the mantel, Sunday dinners that lasted until dark. Built in 1987, 2,200 square feet of ordinary life that became everything. Claire died in 2018. Breast cancer. 6 years of fighting. Then one morning she just didn't wake up. Garrett took it hard. He was 37 then, married to Sienna for 2 years. So did I. When Garrett married Sienna in 2016, I was happy for him. She was ambitious, driven, the kind of woman who had 5-year plans and vision boards. Real estate agent at a downtown firm, always dressed like she was closing deals even at family dinners. "Dad, she's different from Mom," Garrett had said when I'd raised an eyebrow at how she'd rearranged our Thanksgiving seating. "She likes things organized. It's not personal." I'd nodded, kept my opinions to myself. That's what you do when your son's happy. Then Garrett died. Heart attack at 43. No warning, no goodbye. 1 minute he was mowing the lawn. The next minute Sienna was screaming for me to call 911, June 2024. The kind of summer day that should have been ordinary. The funeral was 3 days later. Sienna wore black Chanel and cried on cue. I wore the same suit I'd worn to Claire's funeral and tried not to think about how empty the house would feel now. "You'll stay with us, of course," Sienna had said afterward, gripping my arm. "Well, I'll stay here with you. Someone needs to help you through this." I should have paid attention to how she said us and here, like they were interchangeable. The first week, she was helpful, brought groceries, answered condolence calls, organized the paperwork. I was grateful. Grief makes everything harder, and she was handling the details I couldn't face. The second week, she started rearranging things. "These curtains are so dated," she said, taking down the ones Claire had sewn. The fabric tore as she yanked them down. Claire had sewn those seams by hand, every stitch perfect. Dust motes floated in the afternoon light. 40 years of memories suspended in air. "Claire picked those," I said quietly. My throat closed. I walked away before I said something I'd regret. "I know, but she's gone. We have to move forward." She patted my arm like I was a child. "Garrett would want you to be comfortable." By week 3, she'd moved into the master bedroom. Just temporarily, the guest bed hurts my back, and started talking about improvements. I found the trust documents that same week. Couldn't sleep one night, so I went through Garrett's filing cabinet. Everything organized the way I'd taught him, alphabetized, dated, labeled. Trust, Walter Brennan family, in a manila folder at the back. I read it 3 times. Then I read Claire's life insurance payout receipt. Then I sat there until dawn, understanding what my son had done. He'd been taking care of me for 10 years, and I never knew. I could have told Sienna right then. Could have ended her fantasy about our house and my inheritance with one folder of paperwork. But I didn't. I wanted to see what kind of person she really was, whether grief would soften her or reveal her, whether she'd show even a moment of compassion for the man who'd raised the husband she claimed to love. So I put the folder back, went to bed, and waited. Week 4. Sienna sat at dinner scrolling through her phone, barely touching her food. This house could sell for $420,000 in the current market, she said, not looking up. Maybe more with the right staging. Have you thought about downsizing? I'm not selling, Sienna. Of course not. I'm just saying, theoretically, if you ever wanted to simplify your life, she smiled. There are some lovely senior communities in Columbus. Gardens, activities, people your age. I pushed my food around my plate. I like it here. Sure for now, but long term, it's a lot of house for one person. One person. As if Garrett had been keeping me company, not the other way around. Week 5, she stopped pretending to ask permission. I've scheduled a walkthrough with a stager, she announced Thursday morning. 2 o'clock. You should probably be out. They work better without owners hovering. Sienna, I'm not selling the house. Not yet. But when you're ready, we want to be prepared. She was using her real estate voice now, smooth and certain. Trust me, Walter. I know this market. We need to position the property correctly. We? Well, I am family. She touched the counter like she was measuring it. And Garrett would have wanted me to help you with these decisions. That night, I pulled out the property deed. The paper was yellow at the edges, ink faded but still legible. Walter Brennan, sole owner. Recorded March 1985. I traced Claire's signature on our marriage certificate underneath. 2 lives, 1 home. We'd married in '86, a year after I bought the place. The house had always been mine alone. I slept in my workshop that night. Couldn't stand hearing Sienna moving around in the bedroom Claire and I had shared for 32 years. Week 6 brought new escalations. Sienna started bringing colleagues by just to see the place. They'd walk through with measuring tapes and knowing looks, discussing potential and market positioning like I wasn't standing right there. One evening, I found her in the living room with photo albums spread across the floor. Pictures of Claire, of Garrett as a boy, of our life together. What are you doing? She looked up, startled. Oh, I was just... Some of these might be nice to keep, but a lot of this is just clutter, you know? When we downsize, those aren't clutter. That's my life. I know, but you can't take everything to a smaller place. We have to be practical. She stood, brushing off her knees. For just a second, her face softened. My mother used to keep photo albums too, before she got too tired. Then she stacked the albums on the coffee table and walked away, leaving them like items for a yard sale. Week 7, I found her late one night sitting on the master bedroom floor, surrounded by Garrett's old photos. She was crying, really crying this time, not the careful tears from the funeral. I don't know who I am without him, she whispered. Didn't look up. I thought if I could just control something. She didn't finish. Neither did I. I just stood in the doorway for a moment, then quietly closed the door. Maybe there was a real person under all that ambition, someone scared and lost, but that didn't give her the right to take what wasn't hers. Week 8, she brought what she didn't call an eviction notice. I've found the perfect place for you, she said, setting a brochure on the table. Meadowbrook Senior Living, sunlit rooms and smiling elderly people doing crafts. Beautiful facility, tons of amenities. They even have a library. I'm not interested. Walter. She sat across from me, folding her hands like we were in a business meeting. Let's be realistic. You can't maintain this house alone. The yard work, the repairs, the utilities. It's too much for someone your age. I've managed fine for 6 years since Claire died. That's different. Garrett was here to help. Garrett lived across town. He visited twice a month. Her smile tightened. The point is, this house is too much for you. And honestly, it's too much for me to watch you struggle. It's not fair to either of us. Then don't watch. Excuse me? If it's too hard for you, Sienna, you can leave. I'm not stopping you. She stood fast enough to knock her chair back. Do you know how much I've sacrificed to take care of you? I put my career on hold. I've been living in this time capsule, trying to help you move on. And this is the thanks I get? I didn't ask you to stay. Garrett would be ashamed of you. Her voice went cold. Acting like a burden is somehow noble. You're being selfish, Walter. Selfish and stubborn. She grabbed her purse and walked out. Came back an hour later like nothing had happened, talking about dinner plans. But I'd heard enough. I'd seen enough. She'd shown me exactly who she was. Now it was my turn. Ruth Pierce's office was downtown, 3rd floor of a building that had seen better decades. She'd handled Claire's will and some tax issues for me over the years. Sharp woman. No patience for nonsense. Walter. She stood when I walked in, shook my hand firmly. It's been a while. I was sorry to hear about Garrett. Thank you. I sat in the leather chair across from her desk. I need your help with something. Legal trouble? Maybe. Or maybe I'm preventing it. I pulled out the folder I'd brought. My daughter-in-law is trying to force me out of my house. She's been talking about selling it, moving me into assisted living. I need to know where I stand. Ruth put on her reading glasses and took the folder. Flipped through the deed, the trust documents, the insurance papers. Then she looked up at me, one eyebrow raised. Does Sienna know about this? About what? The trust, the beneficiary designation, any of it? I don't know what she knows. Garrett handled his own finances. Ruth leaned back in her chair. Walter, do you understand what these documents say? I think so, but I'd like you to explain it to me, clearly. She smiled. Not a friendly smile, a lawyer smile. Oh, I'll do better than that. I'll explain it to Sienna. Ruth spread the documents across her desk like evidence. Let's start with the house. Deed recorded March 1985, sole ownership Walter Brennan. Claire was never on the deed. You bought it before you got married, correct? Right. We married in '86. And Garrett never lived here as an owner. He moved out at 22 in 2003, bought his own place in 2005. Ruth tapped the deed. So legally, this house has been yours and yours alone for 40 years. Sienna has no claim to it. None. She's not on the deed. Wasn't married to you. And even as your daughter-in-law, that doesn't grant her property rights. I felt something unknot in my chest. She keeps saying, we need to sell, talking about our house. She's bluffing, or delusional. Either way, she has no legal standing. Ruth pulled out another document. Now, the trust. This is where it gets interesting. She pushed a paper toward me. This was set up in 2015. Garrett created the Walter Brennan Family Trust with you as the sole beneficiary. When he died, you became the trustee. You've been managing this money for 2 months without even knowing it. Managing what money? Ruth pulled out a statement with numbers I could barely process. The trust, currently, holds $340,000. Here's how that breaks down. When Claire died in 2018, her life insurance paid out $100,000. Garrett rolled that into the trust immediately, wanted to make sure you'd have it if something happened to him. In 2019, he moved $85,000 from an old 401k into the trust. Tax implications weren't great, but he did it anyway. She pointed to another line. And over the years, 2015 through 2024, he added personal savings, about $15,000 a year when he could afford it. That's $150,000 in principal. With conservative growth at about 2% after management fees, The total today is $340,000. I stared at the numbers. 10 years of Garrett quietly building something for me, never mentioning it, never asking for thanks. He also had a personal life insurance policy, Ruth continued, separate from his employer coverage, that paid another $100,000 directly to the trust when he died. It's already been deposited. So Sienna got his employer policy. $150,000 plus their joint accounts and his remaining 401k. She's not destitute, Walter. But this? Ruth tapped the trust document. This was never hers to claim. How could she not know? Because she never asked the right questions. She saw life insurance and assumed she'd get it all. She saw this house and assumed Garrett owned it. She made assumptions, Walter. Dangerous ones. Ruth pulled up something on her computer. And about that house value, she's been saying $420,000. That's her number. Comparable sales in your neighborhood show $270,000 to $295,000. She's inflating it by 40%, probably trying to make it sound more appealing to sell, or making herself feel like there's more at stake. So she's been lying, or exaggerating to justify her behavior. Either way, her math doesn't add up. Ruth looked at me over her glasses. Walter, what do you want to do? I thought about Sienna's face when she'd called me selfish, about the curtains she'd thrown away, about finding her with Garrett's photos, crying like she'd lost something she never really had. I want her out of my house, I said, and I want her to know exactly why. Ruth opened her calendar. How's Thursday afternoon? We'll meet at her office. Neutral ground. Witnesses present. Perfect. One more thing, Walter. Ruth closed the folder. Garrett set this up in 2015. That was 2 years after he married Sienna. He could have changed the beneficiary any time. He never did. I nodded, throat tight. He was protecting me. He was honoring you. Ruth stood. Let's make sure his wishes are respected. I met Sienna at the house the morning before our appointment with Ruth. She was in the kitchen, coffee in hand, scrolling through her phone, probably looking at condo listings in Columbus, already planning her next move. We need to talk, I said. She didn't look up. If this is about Meadowbrook again, why do you hate me, Sienna? That got her attention. The phone lowered. Her eyes met mine for maybe the first time in 2 months. I don't hate you. You called me selfish, a burden. You've spent 8 weeks trying to erase every trace of Claire from this house. You want me in a facility where I can't bother you anymore. I pulled out a chair, sat down. That sounds like hate to me. She set her coffee down carefully. You don't understand. Then help me understand. For a long moment, she just looked at me. Then something in her face cracked. You remind me of everything I tried to escape, she said, voice tight. Your thrift store clothes. That ancient truck. This house with its dated furniture and 40-year-old carpet. I wanted Garrett to have more. I wanted us to have more. Garrett had more, I said quietly. He had integrity. He had character. He had the kind of quiet strength that doesn't need expensive furniture to prove itself. I stood up. Those are things you can't buy, Sienna, and you can't inherit them either. What's that supposed to mean? It means this house is too much for one person, I said. You're right about that. Relief flickered across her face. So you'll consider. That's why you need to leave. The relief died. What? You have 30 days. Same timeline you gave me. I walked to the door, stopped with my hand on the frame. There's a meeting tomorrow at your office. 2 p.m. Ruth Pierce will be there. I suggest you attend. I left her sitting there, coffee going cold, phone forgotten. I'd waited 2 months to say what needed saying. It had been worth the wait. Ruth scheduled the meeting for Thursday afternoon at Sienna's real estate office. I arrived at 1:55 p.m., Ruth beside me carrying her briefcase like a weapon. Sienna looked up from her desk, surprised. Walter, what are you doing here? I'm with a client in 20 minutes. This won't take long, Ruth said, setting her briefcase on the desk. I'm Ruth Pierce, Mr. Brennan's attorney. We need to discuss some legal matters regarding your late husband's estate. The AC hummed too loud in the small office. Fluorescent lights made everyone look sick. Sienna's expression shifted from confusion to concern. His estate? Everything's already been settled. I received the life insurance, the 401k. You received some assets, Ruth interrupted. Not all of them. She pulled out the trust documents, spread them across Sienna's desk with the precision of a prosecutor laying out evidence. What is this? Sienna picked up the papers. Her hands shook, papers rattling like dry leaves. That's the Walter Brennan Family Trust, Ruth said calmly. Established by Garrett Brennan in 2015. Total current value, $340,000. Sole beneficiary, Walter Brennan. The color drained from Sienna's face. Her perfume smelled expensive. Everything else about her was cheap. That's not... Garrett wouldn't... He did. And there's more. Ruth laid out the property deed. This is the deed to 428 Maple Street, recorded 1985. Sole owner Walter Brennan, not Garrett, not you. Walter. But Garrett always said. Garrett said it was Dad's house, I said quietly. Because it is. It always has been. Sienna looked between us, papers trembling in her hands. I could hear my pulse in my ears. Thud, thud, thud. Like Garrett's heart monitor the day he died. You're lying. This is fake. Garrett told me we'd inherit everything. Garrett never told you that, Ruth said. You assumed it. Just like you assumed you had the right to make decisions about Walter's property. Just like you assumed you could pressure him into selling his home. I was trying to help. You were trying to take what isn't yours. Ruth's voice stayed level, steel underneath. Let me be clear, Mrs. Brennan. You have been residing in Walter's house for 2 months without paying rent. You have attempted to coerce him into selling property you have no claim to. You have made repeated statements suggesting ownership rights you do not possess. I'm his daughter-in-law, which gives you no legal standing regarding his property or finances. Ruth tapped the documents. Here's what's going to happen. You have 30 days to vacate 428 Maple Street. You will remove your personal belongings and return the house keys to Walter. If you cooperate, we'll consider this a family matter and leave it at that. And if I don't? Sienna's voice shook, but there was still defiance in it. Then we file formal eviction proceedings and pursue a restraining order based on harassment of a 72-year-old man. Ruth smiled without warmth. Your choice. Sienna looked at me, really looked at me. Maybe for the first time since Garrett died. You're really doing this, after everything I've done for you? You didn't do anything for me, Sienna, I said. You did it for yourself. You wanted my house, my land, probably that trust money if you could figure out how to get it. But you never asked what I wanted. You just assumed I was too old and too stupid to notice. Garrett would be... Don't. My voice came out harder than I meant it. Don't tell me what my son would think. You didn't know him the way I did. You knew the man who bought you nice things and took you to expensive dinners. I knew the boy who cried when his goldfish died. I knew the teenager who drove to the hospital every day during his mother's chemo. I knew the son who set up a trust to take care of me because he couldn't stand the thought of me ending up alone and broke. I stood up. Garrett wouldn't be ashamed of me, Sienna, but he'd be real disappointed in you. She was gone in 3 weeks. No big scene, no dramatic exit. She just packed her things methodically, one room at a time, until there was no trace she'd ever lived there. On the last day, she stood in the entryway with 2 suitcases and a box of things from the bedroom. The house keys sat on the hall table between us. Through the window, I could see her car packed and ready. I found a condo in Columbus, she said. not looking at me. Closer to work anyway. That's good. I'm not. She stopped, started again. I'm not who you think I am, Walter. I don't think anything about you, Sienna. I don't know you well enough to think anything. She flinched, picked up her bags. For what it's worth, I'm sorry about the curtains, the ones I threw away. I know they were Claire's. It was the first time she'd apologized for anything. Thank you, I said. She left. Didn't slam the door, just closed it quietly, like she was trying not to wake someone. The small click of metal on wood echoed in the empty hallway. I stood there for a while after her car pulled away, listening to the silence. The house settled around me. Old wood creaking, familiar sounds. It didn't feel empty, just settled, like the house had been holding its breath and could finally exhale. Welcome home, it seemed to say. 6 months later, an envelope arrived. Return address in Columbus. No name, but I recognized the handwriting from grocery lists and reminder notes. I almost threw it away. Then I thought about Garrett, about how he always said everyone deserves a chance to make things right. The letter was short. She'd grown up poor, she wrote. Trailer park in Kentucky. No father, mother, who worked 3 jobs. She'd spent her whole childhood ashamed of where she came from. When she met Garrett, college educated, stable family, nice house, she thought she'd finally made it. But she never escaped, did she? Because when she saw me living modestly, all she saw was everything she was running from. She didn't expect forgiveness. She just wanted me to know she was trying to be someone Garrett could be proud of again. I read it twice. Then I folded it carefully and put it in my desk drawer, underneath the sympathy cards from Garrett's funeral. I didn't write back. Maybe I would someday, maybe I wouldn't. But I kept the letter. Spring came early that year. By April, the maple trees on my street were budding out, and the tulips Claire had planted were pushing through the soil. I was out front pulling weeds when my neighbor Frank stopped his morning walk. Walter, good to see you out here. House looks good. Thanks, Frank, trying to get the garden ready. Heard your daughter-in-law moved out. You doing okay? I'm doing all right. Some days are harder than others, but I'm managing. Frank nodded and walked on. I sat on the porch steps, looking at the house. 40 years, 4 decades of memories layered like paint. Claire and I dancing in the kitchen. Garrett learning to ride a bike in the driveway. Sunday dinners. Ordinary moments that become everything when you lose the people you shared them with. I called Ruth Pierce that afternoon. I've been thinking about that trust money, I said. The $340,000. I want to set up a scholarship for kids from low-income families who want to study accounting. Something in Garrett's name. There was a pause. Then Ruth said, he'd like that. Yeah, I think he would. 2 years later, the Garrett Brennan Memorial Scholarship awarded its first recipient, a girl from Lexington, Kentucky, first in her family to go to college. She sent me a thank you letter that I kept with Sienna's apology. I still live at 428 Maple Street, still drive the old truck, still buy my clothes where I've always bought them. Sienna sends a card at Christmas now, just a card, nothing elaborate. Last year's said, thinking of you. Hope you're well. S. I sent one back. House is good. Garden's thriving. Take care. W. We're not family. Maybe we never were. But we're people who share a history, and that's something. I learned a lot that year. I learned that grief doesn't make people kinder. It just strips away pretense and shows you who was underneath all along. I learned that silence isn't the same as peace. Sometimes staying quiet just enables disrespect. But mostly, I learned what Garrett already knew. The best inheritance isn't money or property. It's teaching someone to stand up for themselves, to know their worth, to understand that quiet strength isn't weakness. Every morning, I wake up in the house I built with Claire, surrounded by memories. And every morning, I'm grateful I fought to keep it. Not because of property value or square footage, but because home isn't about what something's worth on paper. It's about what it's worth to you. And this place, this ordinary house on this ordinary street, it's worth everything.